A quiet luxury street, cameras flashing, shoppers whispering, and a single moment that turned one of the most recognizable royal couples in the world into the center of a fashion industry firestorm. Because what happened outside that Chanel boutique was not just awkward, it was humiliating. And according to insiders, the moment the doors stayed closed on Meghan Markle, something inside Prince Harry snapped. Suddenly, the calm California prince, who once swore he was done with elite institutions, was demanding answers from one of the most powerful luxury houses on earth. It began as an ordinary afternoon in Beverly Hills, the kind where sunlight reflects off polished store windows and luxury cars glide quietly along North Rodeo Drive. The street was alive with quiet wealth, tourists peeking through glass doors, influencers posing beside marble pillars, and shoppers drifting between boutiques where a single handbag can cost more than a car. Nothing about that afternoon suggested it would become the center of a global gossip storm. Then Meghan Markle arrived. That witnesses say she stepped out of a black Cadillac Escalade with the calm confidence of someone who has walked through those doors many times before. Her ivory coat moved softly in the breeze, sunglasses shielding her eyes from both the sun and the curiosity of passers-by. For years, she had been considered a modern-style icon, the woman who could make a simple trench coat sell out worldwide within hours. To many watching, this looked like another effortless fashion moment. But the moment she reached the glass doors, the script changed. Two security guards stepped forward at the same time. Their expressions were neutral, almost rehearsed. No greeting, no polite smile, no assistant rushing out to welcome her inside. Just a brief exchange of words so quiet that most people nearby couldn't hear them clearly. But what they saw next made them stop walking. That Meghan didn't move. For a second, she simply stood there, phone in hand, as if the sentence she had just heard hadn't fully registered. Then she tried again. Witnesses later described her voice as controlled but confused, asking whether there had been some kind of misunderstanding. Luxury boutiques are known for discretion and hospitality, especially toward celebrities. Doors don't close on public figures like that. Not in Beverly Hills. Not on Rodeo Drive. Yet the guards didn't move. According to bystanders, one of them repeated the message again. Calm, firm, final. They had been instructed not to admit her. And just like that, the quiet street turned into a stage. Phones came out almost instantly. A couple standing nearby pretended to browse the window display while secretly filming. A teenager across the street lifted her camera slowly, zooming in. Even inside nearby stores, employees began glancing through the glass as whispers spread along the block. Something strange was happening. Meghan stepped aside, pacing slowly near the velvet rope outside the entrance. For a moment, she looked down at her phone as if reading a message again and again, hoping it would somehow change. Witnesses said she made a call immediately, her tone low but urgent. That call, insiders now claim, was to Prince Harry. And when he heard what had just happened, the reaction was immediate. Because according to several people familiar with the situation, Harry didn't just sound surprised, he sounded furious. Within 20 minutes, another vehicle pulled up near the curb. A tall figure stepped out quickly, pulling a cap low over his face as he walked toward the boutique. Even from a distance, people recognized him instantly. Prince Harry, the energy on the street shifted. Conversation stopped. Cameras lifted higher. What had started as a strange moment was now becoming something bigger. A confrontation between royalty and one of the most powerful fashion houses in the world. Harry approached the entrance where the guards were standing, Meghan beside him explaining something quietly but intensely. Witnesses say he listened carefully, then stepped forward himself, speaking directly to security. No raised voice, no dramatic gestures. Just a tense exchange that lasted less than a minute, but the answer didn't change. There would be no entry. No exception. The message, according to people who later spoke with staff, had already been decided long before that afternoon. Somewhere inside Chanel's Paris headquarters, executives had quietly activated a rare internal protocol, a complete disengagement. No boutique visits, no show invitations, no private previews. In the coded language of luxury fashion, it meant something simple. The relationship was over. But standing there outside the store, Prince Harry didn't know any of that yet. All he knew was that his wife had just been turned away in front of dozens of people and possibly thousands more watching online. And insiders say that realization hit him hard. Because for years, Harry had watched Meghan face criticism from tabloids, from royal commentators, from online trolls who dissected everything she wore or said. But this felt different. This wasn't gossip or speculation. This was a door physically closing in front of her. And according to a former fashion executive who later heard about the conversation, Harry asked one question repeatedly. Who made this decision? He wanted a name. Someone inside Chanel who could explain why the instruction had been given and why it had been enforced expressed so publicly? The guards, of course, had no authority to answer that. Their job was simply to follow orders, so the exchange ended the only way it could, that with silence. That after a few moments, Harry placed a hand lightly on Meghan's arm and spoke quietly. Witnesses close enough to hear later said the sentence was short and calm. "We need to go." They turned together and walked back toward the Escalade while cameras followed every step. The boutique doors never opened. Within minutes, short clips of the scene began spreading across social media. At first, there were just fragments. A blurry shot of Meghan speaking to security, a distant view of Harry arriving, a whisper of speculation in captions that grew more dramatic with every repost. But inside fashion circles, the reaction was different, because insiders had already heard rumors for months about tensions building between Meghan and several major luxury houses. Quiet disagreements over creative projects, unfinished collaboration talks, conflicting ideas about brand control and public image. What the public had just witnessed was only the visible tip of something much larger. Behind the scenes, people say Harry began pushing for answers almost immediately. Calls were reportedly made to mutual contacts in London, New York, and Paris. Advisors began asking questions about internal decisions at Chanel and whether the situation had been misunderstood. But every response seemed to lead to the same unsettling conclusion. The decision had been deliberate. Some insiders say that realization stunned Harry more than the incident itself, because luxury houses operate differently from celebrities or entertainment companies. They don't argue publicly, they don't explain themselves, that they simply close the door, and once that door is closed, it almost never opens again. Yet according to sources close to the couple, Harry refused to accept that explanation without understanding the reason behind it. In private conversations, he reportedly insisted the situation didn't make sense, that there had to be something else behind the scenes, A misunderstanding, A miscommunication, or perhaps something even more complicated hidden beneath the polished silence of the fashion world. Because the more questions he asked, the more disturbing the whispers became. Stories about a proposal from years earlier that had unsettled executives in Paris, leaked mood boards circulating among insiders, a meeting that had apparently gone wrong long before anyone outside the industry even knew about it. And suddenly the humiliating moment outside the boutique looked less like a random incident and more like the final chapter of a much longer conflict, one that had been unfolding quietly behind closed doors for years. And as Prince Harry began digging deeper into what had really happened, the answers he started hearing were far more explosive than anyone expected. The deeper Prince Harry looked into the situation, the more the story began to change shape. What at first seemed like a single humiliating moment outside a boutique slowly started revealing layers of quiet decisions, private discussions, and whispered concerns that had apparently been circulating through fashion circles for years. The world of high luxury operates differently from celebrity culture, and insiders often say that the real decisions are never announced publicly. They are made in silent meetings inside historic buildings, written in discreet internal memos, and communicated through absence rather than confrontation. As Harry began asking questions through mutual contacts in London and Paris, a pattern slowly started to emerge. The first clue reportedly came from a fashion consultant who had once worked closely with luxury brands and who explained that Chanel rarely takes visible actions like the one seen on Rodeo Drive without a long internal process leading up to it. According to this consultant, the decision that kept those doors closed might not have been sudden at all. Instead, it could have been the final step in what insiders describe as a gradual distancing that began several years earlier. Harry reportedly found that explanation difficult to accept at first because from the outside, Meghan had always been associated with fashion influence and global style attention. But within the industry, influence alone does not guarantee alignment with heritage brands that protect their identity fiercely. As Harry's circle continued asking questions, another detail surfaced that made the situation even more complicated. Rumors began pointing toward a series of discussions from 2023 involving potential collaboration ideas between Meghan's team and Chanel representatives. According to people familiar with those conversations, the proposals had initially sparked curiosity inside the company because Meghan's global visibility offered marketing potential. Yet the enthusiasm reportedly cooled quickly when internal teams began examining the long-term implications of attaching the brand's legacy to a modern celebrity narrative that might evolve unpredictably. In the luxury world, legacy is treated almost like a sacred foundation, and executives are known to weigh every partnership against decades of history. One former brand strategist who later spoke privately about the situation described the philosophy bluntly. Fashion houses are built to outlive individuals, and anything that risks shifting the focus away from the brand itself is approached with extreme caution. As Harry listened to these explanations, the story he thought he understood began to unravel further, because the tension apparently did not end with those early discussions. Another insider suggested that what some employees quietly called the mood board controversy had unsettled several departments inside the Paris headquarters. According to whispers circulating among fashion editors, creative concepts allegedly presented during earlier meetings had proposed modern reinterpretations of Chanel's symbolism that some traditionalists inside the company viewed as too bold or too disruptive. Whether those rumors were exaggerated or misunderstood remains impossible to confirm, but in industries built on reputation, even the perception of conflict can travel quickly through internal networks. By the time the Beverly Hills incident occurred, the relationship between the brand and Meghan's team may have already been drifting toward quiet separation for months. What Harry witnessed outside the boutique might have simply been the moment when that internal decision became visible to the public. Yet the consequences of that visibility were immediate and far-reaching. Within hours of the videos appearing online, fashion insiders began analyzing every detail of the scene, from the body language of the security guards to the calm but unmistakable firmness of the refusal. In the world of couture, where image and hierarchy shape everything, the symbolism of a closed door carries enormous meaning. Several observers noted that Chanel did not release any statement afterward, and that silence itself became part of the story. Luxury houses rarely respond to controversy because doing so would acknowledge a narrative they prefer to control privately. Instead, they allow speculation to circulate while maintaining the image of calm authority. As Harry's frustration grew, some members of his extended network reportedly encouraged him to let the issue fade rather than confront it publicly. They explained that challenging a brand like Chanel could escalate the situation and draw even more attention to the original humiliation. But according to people familiar with Harry's mindset at the time, the issue had already become personal. What disturbed him most was not the refusal itself, but the way it happened in public view, with cameras capturing every second. For someone who had spent years protecting Meghan from hostile media narratives, the idea that the moment might spread across the internet felt like another wave of embarrassment they would have to navigate together. Meanwhile, inside the fashion world, reactions were unfolding quietly. Executives at other luxury houses reportedly began reviewing their own relationships with celebrity figures, not necessarily because of Meghan specifically, but because the incident highlighted the delicate balance between heritage branding and modern fame. Invitations to private fashion events are often reconsidered months in advance, and guest lists for upcoming shows were reportedly revised across several European capitals. Some insiders insist that these adjustments were routine and unrelated to the Chanel situation, while others suggest that the incident served as a reminder that fashion institutions protect their reputation collectively. By the end of that week, Harry and Meghan had returned to their home in Montecito, where the atmosphere around them reportedly shifted from anger to reflection. Friends close to the couple say the experience forced them to confront an uncomfortable reality about how influence works inside elite industries. Visibility can open doors quickly, but those same doors can close just as quietly when priorities change. The deeper Harry examined the situation, the more he realized that demanding answers might never produce a clear explanation, because the decision itself had likely been shaped by dozens of small internal judgments rather than one dramatic conflict. In other words, there might never be a single person to blame or a moment to reverse. The fashion world moves through reputation and perception rather than public negotiations. For Meghan, the experience reportedly became a turning point in how she approached the industry moving forward. Instead of focusing on traditional luxury houses, some people close to her say she began exploring collaborations with emerging designers and smaller brands that value modern storytelling over strict heritage rules. Whether that shift will reshape her public image remains uncertain, but the incident undeniably changed the conversation around her influence in fashion circles. As for Prince Harry, those who know him say the moment left a lasting impression about the quiet power of institutions that operate beyond celebrity culture. The doors of that boutique on Rodeo Drive may have closed in less than a minute, yet the echo of that moment spread across Paris, London, and Hollywood alike, turning a brief encounter with security into one of the most talked about whispers in modern fashion gossip. And even now, months later, the story continues to circulate in hushed conversations among editors, stylists, and brand executives who understand one unspoken rule of high fashion better than anyone. In a world built on image and legacy, sometimes the loudest message is delivered through silence. And sometimes the most dramatic statement a brand can make is simply choosing not to open the door. Not to open the door.